Hello, and welcome back to the drawing challenge. It is week 2 or day 7, and today we're drawing Corey. Today was a value test. I implemented more dramatic shadows so I could focus on the subject of the piece, aka our lovable book boy Corey. I'm also not using any colors so I could pay attention to the variation of values rather than the variation of hues. I placed him in a background he's all too familiar with, which luckily fit for the challenge and the prompt that I gave him. I considered for a while to add colors to the piece, but eventually I just stuck with what the original plan was. I also wanted to work on my expressions, and I went for a more uneasy, perturbated, a despondent look for a bookworm like him. I used strokes in the background to give texture, which was a little bit tricky. Overall, this piece was pretty fun to make, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. So here's day 7, Corey. Day 8 is Diamond Day. She is a more recent OC, but she is super charming to work with. Just not when it came to this drawing. First of all, the shading for the hair was a lot more troublesome. Her hair doesn't work like traditional hair. They're more like diamond cuts, if that makes sense. Also, the hair is a lot lighter, so finding some darker colors to use is trickier. And while the perspective for the background was easy, finding what the background was going to be is a lot harder, or was a lot harder. Originally, it was going to be a mall, and then I changed it to a beach, and then back to a mall again, and at that point, I had to go back and find the drafts again. In the end, I was worried that the drawing would look a bit bland, but I didn't want this to be an emotive piece compared to Corey's drawing, and I wanted to keep it fun and light and super stylish, just like Diamond herself. The screen blending mode filter also really helped in the end. So here it is, day 8, Diamond, from my pocket best friend. Day 9 is Doggo's day. For Doggo, I wanted to capture a scene that evoked comfort. Originally, the composition, as you could see here, was horizontal, and Doggo was sleeping on a bunk bed, but I later changed it as there was another idea that came into mind that I really wanted to try out, aka a home disco party where he was knocked out. Another change to this drawing overall was the addition of a hair study. Originally, it was just a piece where I could just focus a bit on shading and just, have a bit of fun, but I wanted to experiment with another hair shading technique. I wanted to find different ways I could shade the hair, and I took inspiration from Feng Zhao's tutorial, which I'll be leaving in the description. I would love to find a way to streamline a process when it comes to adding layers to shade and render the pieces so that the piece can look nice without having too many files, and it's a bit easier for me to organize the piece. When I finished, I realized I forgot the tail, but, well, it was too late for that. Well, anyhow, it still turned out pretty nice, I think. I'm pretty satisfied with the overall piece, if I remembered the stinking tail. But here it is, day 9, Doggo. Day 10 is the third My Pocket Best Friend character in a row, which is baffling considering the fact that I organized these characters to have a variety in which casts and stories and OCs I would be picking from. But anyways, today's for Egg. She was such a fun character to draw. She's a dumb little happy and jumpy little creature. And today I wanted to do another art style study that I felt like would fit Egg's light and fun personality just so nicely, aka L'Oreal's art style. Her stuff is such a big inspiration when I first started, as in really first beginning to learn how to draw, as I've doodled before that. And I was super excited to get started on this art style study. The art style has a gentler look. There's rounder, squishier faces, and oval little beady eyes. I really love this. And there's also a lot of light colors that are super pleasing to the eye. For the line art pen, I used an alcohol marker with more opacity to emulate that gentle line art, and I changed the size of the pen every once in a while to add hair streaks within her hair that I found was very common in L'Oreal's art style. The expressions were trickier to implement because of Egg's airheaded personality, but for what it's worth, I think I managed. I still wanted the expressions to express enough of Egg's personality where I wouldn't have to deviate too far from the kind of person she was. I really had so much fun with this day, and I'm gonna admit it's one of my favorites. So here it is, day 10, Egg. On day 11, I drew Gooberry, our petite little girl, our petite little one here. The alcohol marker I used for day 10 is doing wonders to my line art. It's literally perfect. I love using it. I was going to shade the hair similar to the Fungzao method from Dago's drawing in day 9, but Gooberry's hair was lighter, so it was trickier to emulate. Instead, I decided to go for a shading test, a shadow test, if you will, to test a simpler way of shading. I would use a unified color palette and adjust the value or hue based on the idea and the environment of the piece, and the shadows would simply be in areas where the shadow would be, and the light would simply be in areas where the light would be, and the colors I pick, again, are going to be based on the environment and not on the character. There is some subsurface scattering based on the undertone of the skin. This was a lot easier and a lot quicker to do, and I hope to test this again. The oil brush really helped the background, and I overall really enjoyed making this piece. So here it is, our petite little girl, our petite little one, for day 11, Gooberry. The final day for week 2, or just day 12 in the overall challenge, is now a drawing for Hearthspin. I got pretty busy on this day, so I just stuck with a small little doodle. I don't really doodle often, and I know I have ideas where it's preferable to have a doodle rather than a full-sized illustration, so I'm pretty happy that I was able to get the time to do something like this. It was fun and quick and light, and I still got to experiment with shading methods from the day before, and experiment with that alcohol marker, and add some patterns that were an important part in Chi's piece. Overall, I'm super happy with this week. I was able to find some art style elements and materials that I can call back to in my own drawings. These were probably... I really enjoyed these. There's nothing much else to say, and I can't wait to start week 3 and see what else is in store. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I'm wishing you all the best. I can't wait to see you all for week 3. Bye!